The overarching theme from Mayor Jim Payne, as well as some of the other officials here, was before this goes from bad to worse, get out of this city. They're saying that's a necessary precaution that they need to take here. And as Dan mentioned a little bit earlier in the show, this could potentially impact tens of thousands of people. Edward, we're just getting notification from the mayor's office, that's Superior Mayor Jim Payne, that evacuation radius has actually grown because of the volatility of this situation here. This press conference started with two very powerful words and a smile from Mayor Jim Payne, and that was fires out. So as simple as that, but risks still do remain. Partisan politics will always be at play, Dan, but it sounds like the biggest hurdle here will be the big ask, the big financial ask. $164 million is obviously a lot of money for that bill. Jen, who and why they did this still remains unclear. Police do have surveillance footage of this incident unfolding, and it looks a little bit like this. Whoever was responsible for doing this untied one of these all five of these knots that tie up the Vista Queen, and then they were able to stand up and push this boat, turning it 180 degrees out towards the pier. And they grabbed a rope and they were able to walk it down the slip here before pushing it out into the harbor, where eventually it floated out there several hundred feet. Dan, this house right here behind me is where police responded to earlier this afternoon looking for a suspect in a domestic abuse case from Wednesday night. Now, as I step out here and we look at that damage you just mentioned, we start here on the second floor. We can see holes through the windows up there, and the window's still open. And as we start to pan down here to the main level, you can see where the door was breached and the windows were taken out. Those have now been boarded up by authorities. Part of the charm up here is keeping a little bit of history alive. This cabin here was built in 1902 and relocated from Windigo Point up near the Canadian border. Part of the remodel process here is refurbishing some of these cabins while keeping that century-old history intact. This is just one of the two cloth disc filters here. Together, they filter about 1 million gallons of wastewater per day, searching for solids that contain mercury and other contaminants. Hours before the deadline to have a balanced budget passed, the Republicans, who control both the House and the Senate, feel like they have put together a balanced budget that works for Minnesota. It's this 45-foot response vessel that the Coast Guard used to nudge the Queen out of the path of the Laker, while a Vista crew member boarded it and drove it off to safety.
It's plenty cold. We'll get the mail through, as everybody knows, pretty much through anything.
Dave Mayo is a Duluth mail carrier and has been for the last decade. He can't remember a cold snap quite like this one.
December was really warm, but I knew we were going to pay for it. And yeah, we're really paying for it now. Yeah, this is just really cold.
Mayo isn't one of those carriers that spends his day driving his truck. No, he does this job the old-fashioned way.
In a given day, I walk anywhere between 7 and 10 miles, about 25,000 steps on the old Fitbit.
Step by step, hour after hour, as the temperature drops, he stays warm by adding layer after layer.
3 pairs of gloves, 4 pairs of pants, 6 pairs, I think, of coats, 3 pairs of hats, yeah.
Does it keep you warm?
No. Well, everything but my fingers is doing okay right now, yeah.
But that's how he trudges through snow and ice-covered sidewalks for 8 hours a day.
Just trying to keep every bit of skin from being exposed. So yeah, it's all about layers.
Which is especially important, as skin exposed for as little as 5 minutes runs the risk of frostbite.
When people start talking about that this is dangerous and stuff like that, we really do take it serious. So, but I mean, at the same time, you know, we have a job, so.
Leaving Mayo longing for July.
Give me the 95-degree day. I'm dreaming about that right now. Yeah.
Down a dusty dirt road in rural northwestern Wisconsin is Pinocchio Range Holsteins, a dairy farm, and its owner, Morgan Peck.
We farm about 1,000 acres. We milk 325 cows.
Peck, his wife, and 2 sons have operated the farm for 3.5 decades and produce roughly 1 million gallons of milk annually, which is turned into cheese.
Well, it's everything, I guess. It's our career, it's our passion.
That passion recently took a big hit as Mexico and China announced big tariffs against the U.S. Mexico with 25% tariffs on cheese, and China with tariffs on more than $34 billion of U.S. goods, including cheese.
Well, it feels kind of limiting.
Peck says it's too early to tell the exact dollar impact it will have on his farm, but the long-term outlook isn't great.
Well, if it doesn't change from what it does now, we're going to have a lot less dairy farms.
He says dairy is cyclical, running in 3-year downturns. But this year, he says, is the 4th year in a row dairy has been down, and the tariffs could prolong that.
It's going to cycle back, but how many of us are going to be left when it's done?
Peck says as it sits right now, this will stagnate his business, and he can't afford not to grow. His upkeep on a farm and buying new equipment isn't cheap.
Things are so tight. There's no room to buy a tractor or update a piece of equipment.
He says they'll find a way to work around the tariffs, but that doesn't mean he isn't concerned about the long-term fiscal health of his dairy farm.
It's rather disheartening, and especially for our younger generation that wants to come into these farms.
At 60 years of age, that's a real concern for Peck, as he expects his sons to take over in the not-so-distant future.
It's going to be daunting, to say the least.
It's going to be a struggle, but it kind of always has been in agriculture.
Jason Fischbach is a Northwest Wisconsin agriculture agent. He spends his days walking family barns like Peck's and says this absolutely could lead to the closure of any number of family dairy farms that pepper America's dairyland.
Absolutely. Dairy farms right now do not need any more stressors, and this is a bad time. And again, we just don't know, and that's part of the problem.
In the days following the fatal fire that took the life of 11-month-old Bentley Koski, grandparents John and Pam Swanson have been pouring through pictures as they cling to the memory of their one and only grandson.
Almost all of the pictures of him, there's
He's
a smile.
smiling.
He's just so happy and just so full of life.
That life came to an abrupt end on Wednesday. Authorities responded to a tower house fire and while putting it out, found Bentley inside.
To me, if I was there, I would have never left that house alive if he was still in there. What person would?
Authorities say Bentley was left home alone when the fire broke out.
No excuses for that. None whatsoever.
Bentley's grandparents say his uncle, Jesse Bonacci Koski, was responsible for babysitting him while the parents were out, something he's been asked to do on several prior occasions.
Krista and Cody, very good parents to Bentley. He was their whole world. They loved him more than anything.
With so much love from his grandparents and parents, the Swansons are left to wonder what led up to Bentley's death.
We have a lot of unanswered questions. Why did he leave the baby home alone? What? Why? What time did he leave the house? And I'm hoping that they question him and he gives answers to these questions we have.
While the two seek answers,
I don't think he intentionally wanted to harm the baby, but his actions are inexcusable.
all they have left are these pictures and this cell phone video as they wish the future could be brighter.
Think about everything we're going to miss. All the birthdays and Christmases, sporting events, taking them hunting or fishing. God, what a waste. What a waste.